Hello, everyone. I'm Kumar Sankaran, the CEO of Lucent Rich Bio, and your host for today. This episode is brought to you by BugSpeaks, South Asia's first microbiome test. Welcome to the fifth episode of Microbiome Gazers. The last 15 minutes would be for any questions from the audience. Please fill in your questions in the question box. If you're having trouble with the connectivity, please click on the question mark to get in touch with the M8 support. In today's session, we would be talking about behavioral psychology and its connection with microbiome. Joining me today is Mon, the co-founder of Behavioral Foresight. Hi, Mon. Welcome to the show. Can you tell me more about yourself?
Hello, Kumar, and thank you for introducing me. And it's a great welcome, an opportunity for me to connect between the mind and the body in a very unique way. I would say shortly about myself. I'm coming from Israel. I represented Israel as a fencer internationally for over 12 years. I joined the Israeli IDF in search and rescue and have done more than 50 operations in different extreme scenarios. And with all these experiences in life, I sat on the bench in the university to study psychology and to connect it to what will bring you today. Experience and theory regarding the mind and the body.
So, Mon, when did you come to India? So, what have you been doing in India of late?
So after working with the Olympic teams for the last Rio Olympic Games 2016 as a mental coach, I have decided to look for a new journey for myself. I have a small addiction, which I love excitement and being in discomfort situations. So I decided to leave everything back home, although things were working very good for me, and to look for my new journey. I would say intuitively, and usually I use my intuition to take big decision. I decided to come to India, although I had no specific goal or not a specific location. I knew that I'm going to explore the mind and the body. Uh, Furthermore, as I really appreciate the Eastern philosophy, the Eastern psychology, um, from a martial art perspective to the meditation perspective. Today we even hear about some of the things that we are doing with the breathing, with the brain waves, and how all of these things, which are the fundamental getting connecting together. So for me, India were in the first place when I wanted to start a new journey. Quite fast after my third Vipassana retreat in India, I found myself in a really interesting meeting, which took 2 days, where I met my business partner, Shiva Subramanian. We actually drove together to his coffee estates and we spoke about all types of uh, lifestyles, philosophy, lots of fundamental understandings. And I knew that I'm going to start my new journey, my new experience here with him as part of Connect Venture that being owned by him. I would say after several months, we decided to found the company Behavioral Foresight, which aim to deal with behavioral psychology, with performance, with behavioral economics, and basically to see how can we train and design different strategies to improve personal health, performance, for individuals, for teams, for corporates, from the science all the way to the behavior. And this is where I am today after 3.5 years in India.
So Mon, what is behavioral psychology? And I heard you using the term behavioral economics as well. So, what is this so that our viewers can understand it better?
So I will start with the behavioral psychology. It's the connection between the mind and the behavior. Our mind, uh, as we will soon will speak about brainwaves as well, and the neurotransmitters have a way to function, and it affects our behavior. And there is a vast research regarding these connections between the mind and how thoughts and emotion are being structured and forming our behavior. So this is behavioral psychology, and I would say there are two types of behaviors that we will also talk about today. Why the behavior is a chain reaction, as I mentioned, a chain reaction that start from our senses or from our body and being translated from energy like our nerve system to chemicals through, for example, like our gut microbiome and forming behaviors. It can be related to cognition, it can be related to emotions, it can be our way to perceive situations. And I will segregate it to two. One is top down, from the brain to the body, which means that it will be first our senses that sense something. The brain started to calculate it, form a perception, and send some information through the nerve systems to the body to behave in a certain way. And the second one is bottom up, which you probably will be able to say way more, which is from the body. It can be from muscles, but it can also be from the gut that sends something, some changes happen, and now it's again through the nerve system communicated to the brain. And this kind of feedback loop is keep on running and forming what we know as personality, for example. A person will be more calm, a person will be more anger. Some people have more compassion, empathy, some people have more frustrations and depression. This kind of personalities actually being formed like that.
And what exactly do you do with behavioral psychology? I mean, how does that translate to any individual?
So the way we look on the behavior, we actually use objective measurements like biofeedback and neurofeedback that allow us to quantify these processes. For example, we can see objective parameters like heart rate variability that we'll speak during this conversation, skin conduction and arousal, respiratory rate, and brain waves. And while mapping these parameters, more than what the person only subjectively saying, which is one of or this is one of the things that we are looking into. We are also creating a more objective report, and together we can see how objectively the person is functioning and subjectively what's happened in his behavior and how this person actually perceives the world, what the challenges, what are the obstacles, where are the strengths, which is really important for us as we appreciate to work with the strengths, as well as where are the weaknesses and how can we train both of them. So eventually an individual or a team or even in a larger scale like a corporate people know how to increase their potential, have a better performance, as I mentioned, emotionally, cognitively, mentally, and being able to train it very similarly like a muscle.
And who are the kind of people that would benefit from this kind of training?
So for us, as I say, we are looking on performance, which means that whoever sees himself as a performer can benefit. At least for us, performers are CEOs, managers, leaders, and entrepreneur, athletes, and professional or extreme athletes. We even have kids that some of them are athletes, some of them just enjoying our life skills programs to build a bigger range of skills before problems appear. To be honest, we even have people that coming on a personal base, and it's more or relationship base, which they want to perform better in their personal life. We are choosing to use performance because at the moment you label someone, and we will see it when shortly I will speak about behavioral epigenetics. We can actually manifest problem. We can choose to create problems and limitations that will become part of our life because we were asking for them. So at least from our perspective, our job is not to label people and create problems, but to solve them and to create, I would say, opportunities for them. Shortly, I mentioned the behavioral epigenetics, which, at least from my side, is also connected to everything that we are doing, as we are seeing people that personality or again challenges are not a limitation. It's an opportunity, and it depends in the way we are seeing it and choosing to handle it, and accordingly we can progress and improve. And now there's research and know to show that more that the genes, the epigenetics, the way we expressing the genes, will decide how do we feel, how do we function. And this is why for me, when I'm thinking about performance, immediately I'm correlated with epigenetics. If a performance, and we have more than 8 years of experience with top athletes, you can see the way they talk, even in very challenging situations, even during injuries, even under limitation or constraints. If they know how to have a self-talk and express positivity, we actually can see an insane ability to perform. So for me, part of behavioral psychology, coming the behavioral epigenetics, to understand that we are not limited. Whatever we have, we can always express it more. I didn't mention earlier, we also use with a service or exercise using breath, which is really crucial for us. And this is when I spoke about the objective parameters. Breath is one of the most interesting ones that allow us to control many of these parameters and manipulate many of these parameters to be able to express them better. And this is why I'm connecting it to the epigenetics, because by manipulating or controlling the breath, we can change several parameters that will change our mood, that will change the way we see the world, that will change our state of mind and can actually alter brainwaves. So breath, everyone have it, and it's for free, and it's a very powerful tool that I must admit, coming from the East, and this is one of the reasons I chose to start my new journey in the East, as the breath be known here as a crucial component to alter states of mind and behaviors, and I wanted to learn more about that and experience it much more.
Thanks, man. That was quite insightful. Talking about tough conditions, and especially you were talking about tough conditions the athletes were facing today. Around the globe, given the pandemic, I mean, it's a really tough condition out there. I also wanted to ask you a little bit about your thoughts on stress.
Stress. I must admit that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm addicted to excitement and being in discomfort. It always comes with stress. I think from the age of 6, maybe until today, I keep on experiencing stress as a professional athlete in war zones, military operations, traveling around the world in places that you are alone and there's no one over there. It's only you and nature. And with this new journey here in India, so stress, I think it's a very interesting term, as we want to understand that it's not only mentally, and I will explain that. Stress can take us either direction. It can be positive, and when I say positive, it can actually create a movement, create a change. Actually, every time we are training and doing a workout, we are stressing the body. Thanks to this movement and thanks to this stress, things are being break, things are being recovered and rebuilt, and this is how we grow. So stress have a great impact on us physically. I would say also mentally. At least I can say through my experience in the military, you are being stressed mentally in very extreme scenarios. And one thing I can say with no doubts, my mental capacity and my resilience increased way beyond of what I thought that I can handle, thanks to this kind of stressors. So it is important for me to mention that stress is a very crucial and can be positive. However, if we are not coping it correctly with the stress, or we overdid it, stress become a very negative thing. And when I say negative, it will become like a stagnant. Things will get stuck. If earlier on the positive I spoke about movement, in the negative I'm talking about stagnation. And this kind of stagnation can increase mental disorders, can increase, I would say, headaches and diarrhea, learning and cognitive challenges and disabilities. I'm quite sure also that from your perspective, Kumar, you will be able to say few words about, for example, diabetes or obesity or any other gut-related challenges that will come, as I say, bottom up, that the body is being stressed and now the mind is suffer.
Yes, Mon, I think the gut-brain axis is a very, very strong axis, and it's a bidirectional axis. Like you rightly pointed out earlier, what affects the mind affects the gut, and what affects the gut affects the mind. And uh, they when we talk about stress and when we talk about disease conditions, I mean, there's an age-old saying that the root cause of all diseases is inflammation. Um, I am adding to that by saying the root cause of all inflammation is gut, uh, and especially inflammation in the gut. Um, it's amazing, how much the gut actually contributes to mental wellness and to behavior, and to as you used the word behavioral psychology as well. If you've had a good gut and a very diverse microbiome, you tend to have better cognition, better mental wellness, and you're able to perform your activities much better. It is interesting to note that high performance athletes tend to, you see their gut microbiome actually being in a little dysbiotic state, and them actually correcting it will improve their concentration levels, will improve their mental activities and stuff like that. So the connection is very, very strong, the gut brain axis. Um, I also know that there's a few experiments going around, which is trying to look at yoga and breathing and to see how that is correlated with the gut microbiome. But purely from a mental exercise point of view, and from a stress point of view, and from the brain waves kind of point of view, can you talk a little bit more about breathing and the kind of breathing exercises that can be done, or the techniques that are being used to solve these problems?
So I will start that we would like to understand that the respiratory system is one of the most sensitive system. And why I'm calling it sensitive is the breathing will be reacting to anything that will happen around us. For example, we know allergies. For example, mood. We know that when we are more anxious or more excited, our breathing is very different. We know that when we are happy and calm, our breathing is even getting slower and slower. One of the best examples I can tell about myself was in the Himalayas, 2011. I was in one of the peaks, and it was a great day, a beautiful moment. And for the first time in my life, suddenly I could feel that my nose got open and I could breathe freely. After many years of being under pressure and stress, my respiratory system started to react and staying in a stuck way. As I mentioned, the stress became stagnant and my respiratory system was stuck. And suddenly I could feel the change in the state of mind by the breath. So this was a really aha moment for me to start and pursue even more, not only yoga and pranayamas, but all types of breathing manipulations or not manipulating the breath and keep it naturally and observing it, same as they are doing in the Vipassana. When we look on the breathing mechanism, it's a really smart and sophisticated system. The most important part, I would say, and it's a first tip for today, is to breathe through the nose. Why do we want to breathe through the nose? Because the nose is not only for us to look nice, is actually have several filtration system from temperature to humidity to bacteria and viruses, and basically it's allowing us to breathe much more quality air irrespective of where we are. Obviously, if we are in a very polluted space or around lots of sick people, obviously the nose filtration will be limited as well. But if we're comparing it to mouse breathing, there is a really interesting research that's been done, and people getting sick just because they are breathing from the mouse in I would say, controlled environment, not in a polluted environment, not because viruses like we have today, just because they blocked their nose for 2 weeks, and they did a really interesting experiment that's been done by Harvard, and they could show increase and significant symptoms of sickness just because of mouse breathing. If we will move from the mouse, or sorry, from the moment they enter to us, the oxygen and the CO2, the carbon dioxide, are very crucial gases that we want to look very carefully on them. I'm sure that Kumar will be able to finish what I'm about to explain about ATP, but oxygen is one of the main components of ATP. Is it correct, Kumar?
Yeah, it is.
And when and ATP is actually the energy unit our body creating for us to function in the mitochondria, and every function, if it's a automatic function, conscious functions, subconscious, it's all voluntary function, it's all needs some energy, and the oxygen together with what we eat will decide, and actually the way we're forming ATP, as Kumar saw my gut microbiome and the challenges I had, the way we are creating this ATP will eventually allow us to function and perform in a certain way. So this gas exchange is the beginning of life. We all know at the moment we stop breathing, we die because of these gases. A really interesting thing we all know about carbon dioxide and the negativity part of this gas, but actually internally in our body is a very crucial gas that we need it again to be able to take the oxygen units that being transported by the blood cells and to leave them in the correct places, that they can leave the red blood cell into the stations. We need the CO2. There's a really interesting breathing exercise that actually coming from Russia and called Buteyko. And actually what they figure out that this gas exchange is really critical. They started to investigate it for asthma patients, which at that time people thought that they are not getting enough oxygen. But actually what happened, the body had enough oxygen, but the oxygen couldn't leave the red blood cells. So the oxygen will come in and will get stuck. And this is where the breathlessness started. Using their technique, they figure out that you can actually balance it again. You balance the oxygen and the CO2, and it's like a miracle. We have quite a lot of patients that used to use all the paths on a daily basis, and with this simple breathing exercise, and obviously with lots of discipline, They don't use it anymore. They may keep it in their bag for emergencies, but we have clients that the emergency didn't come for months, or they forgot where they put the inhalators because they don't use it anymore. So this is again one example of the sensitivity of the respiratory system, and how can we very simply, with a simple breathing exercise, realign and find the homeostasis in case we have some symptoms. I would like here to ask you, Kumar. I started talking about ATP, and we earlier we spoke about stress. How do we connect, the importance of quality breath to manufacture and produce quality ATPs, for us to be able to perform in all levels in a more quality way?
Interesting question, Bon. I think the uh, what is very so. If you have looked at research that has been done over the last decade, there is growing evidence of breath work and breathing exercises related to gut health. So much so that just by doing the right kind of breathing techniques, you improve your gut health. And now we've also seen that the breathing exercises being correlated with a more diverse microbiome, or a much better gut microbiome. Um, that feeling. There is also now a strong connection between the gut lung axis. Um, and as you know, that we recently published a paper on the gut lung axis, given the COVID-19 aspect to it. The interesting concept from all of this is it purely boils down to energy and ATP production. It's at the fundamental level, whether it is a human cell, whether it's a bacterial cell, whether it's a fungal cell, no matter what cell it is, what kind of energy is it producing, and what is it taking in to produce that energy. And it is from this perspective, we now realize how important ATP is, as important nutrition is, for the gut and gut health and the microorganisms in it and all the metabolites it's kind of secreting. It is also important that there is good air that is being taken in. And when I talk about good air, I don't mean clean, purified, bacteria-free air. I'm talking about less of chemicals, less of pollutants being in the air, and that not inhibiting any of the ATP generation cycles, and from with that energy coming out, you have better gut movement and better mobility in the gut, which then ensures the right kind of microorganisms are there in the right spatial organs within the gut itself. So I think that is where everything gets correlated in one kind of way. Um, the other interesting thing that I wanted to, when we're talking about energies and when we're talking about ATP, one other interesting thing is that you do that kind of intrigues me is brain waves, and your measurement of brain waves. How does that connect up with everything that you do?
So it's really interesting because if we are looking from different perspectives, not only the human body, and nowadays we know to say that everything is matter and energy, and it's a combination of these two who create whatever we know around us and many of the other things that we don't know around us. And I would say also from the quantum physics perspective, we know that there are many processes that happening parallelly and not in a linear way. And I'm mentioning this part because this is how the brainwaves actually function. If we are looking on a heart rate is mostly more linear, although even new research nowadays know to say that sympathetic and parasympathetic can function simultaneously, which means that the heart can be in both reactions for parasympathetic and sympathetic. If I'm coming back to the brainwaves, the brainwaves, we actually have 5 brainwaves, and I would say that we are at the beginning. We just did the baby steps to understand the neuroscience and all the effects of the brainwaves. But I would say widely what is known that we have 5 brainwaves. We have gamma that mostly binding different ideas to a signal idea. We have beta, which is more towards single focus, concentration, learning abilities, much more being active. Alpha brainwave, where it's more related to relaxation and kind of being lucid, resting state of mind. We have the theta, which is during sleep. We'll see it in the REM phase of sleep, where the brain is getting rejuvenate in a meditative state of mind, which there is a big research about experienced meditator and what's happened in their brain, which is very different and very unique. To some extent, it's almost look like a disorder, although they function way better, because the science today see it as a disorder because it's out of the norm, but actually their ability is way above of the norm. In theta also we will see a process of novel incoming stimuli. So new things that will come to us will activate the theta brainwave. And the last one is delta, which mostly known as the sleep frequency. During the day, we will almost not hit a delta or not at all. And during the night, this will be the dominant brainwave, which might explain, that we are still functioning, but we are more subconscious, and many processes are switching off, and different processes are being switched on. As I say, brainwaves is something that is very tricky to track and to follow, and it's in a constant change. But what we can see is how it's function in different parts of the brain, and which of them are more dominant, and what triggered it to be more dominant. We also know that when we see too much of one of these brainwaves, we will start to see some cognitive disabilities or immune issues that causing that. And interesting research been done on ADHD, and on the other hand, depression, and how these people will have different brain waves, and this is how they connect, and can see that this I would say too much of a specific brainwave actually creating learning disabilities, but at the same time can create mood swings or very low level of energy in some people, or hyperactivity in different people. And this is why I'm saying we are still at the initial phase of understanding brainwaves. What I want us to take this discussion from the brainwaves and understanding that they are creating different states of mind to our nerve system, which is, I would say, our Wi-Fi cable. This is our way to communicate, again, as we say, on the brain-gut axis, and from the mind to the body and the body connection. The nerve system will be one of the most critical systems that it used to be thought that we can't control it, and the nerve system doing what the nerve system doing. But today we know that we can actually control the nerve system. This is part of the training that we are doing in behavioral foresight to train our clients to identify behaviorally on which state of mind are they, on which nerve system are they, on the stress and panicking, fight or flight, or on the system that is recovering and calming. And by identifying it, they can tune themselves and they can learn how to control it. So the nerve system is really unique in this case, and I'm assuming that when we human developed the Wi-Fi, the nerve system was in the back of our mind because it's functioning very similarly. And I would like to talk about controlling the nerve system again by three interesting tools. One is visualization, using this capability of the human mind to imagine what we actually doing. We are creating a virtual reality in our head. This virtual reality is actually activating the same area of the brain and training us with the same brain waves to function the way we would like to function. So visualization is a very old technique that's been used, but I would say today more than ever, because of actual virtual games that been in research, we actually know that we can activate and deactivate intentionally parts of the brain, including choosing which brainwaves would we like to have according to the visualization that we are running. So this is one interesting technique that we are using, and we are understanding more and more the strengths and the power of this technique on the state of mind, but also on the brain-gut axis, to be able to reduce acidity, to be able to open up and change from a stress and inflammation state of being to be much more calm and allow bowel movement and I would say more alkalinity in the gut. Another interesting technique that I would like to mention here is the meditation. And meditation, very similar to the visualization, actually putting us in a virtual world. If we meditate correctly, and today there are ways and simple tools that everyone can purchase at home to measure if they are meditating and breathing and visualizing correctly, we can actually again create this space or change the space between being stressed and keep on accumulating stress, and from the mental perspective and the physiological perspective, to have way more offbeat. And I will explain the term offbeat. Offbeat, when I mention it, it's actually the HRV, heart rate variability. We all know heart rate, but heart rate variability is the spaces between the beats. And this is why I call it the offbeat. As longer the distance, we are in a better calmness state. Our system will be much more coherent, which means that they are functioning together the gut, the nerve system, the heart rate, they were all function together and allowing us to do all the relevant process from creating the ATP to behave the way we actually wanted to behave in the correct timing. And for us to buy more units of beats and to increase our HRV, meditation is a brilliant tool. And actually, this is one of the other reasons I came to India, to explore much more in the realm of meditation and continue with my Vipassana retreats, and exploiting the way it's actually changing our automatic reactions, again, from the mind perspective, but also from the physiological perspective. And I will bounce back to the breathing, which again, the breath itself, as I mentioned earlier, can manipulate the gas exchange. The breath can also manipulate the nerve system, and using the breath, we can change from being on a fight and flight mode to being calm. And when I speak about performance, it's not only being calm like I'm chilling on the beach, but it's being calm and sharp, that I can perform at my max in the most efficient way. And for me, efficiency is a crucial word in the understanding of lifestyle, resilience, and well-being. If I'm efficient, I have a greater ability to be resilient. If I'm not efficient, I will struggle, even if it's just a small challenge. One short example that I want to give regarding breathing, which also on the edge of meditation. There are two interesting techniques. One, which it's coming from the Chinese understanding or philosophy or science. It's called internal embryonic breathing, which you actually compress your internal organs using your inhalation and release the compression using your exhalation. And by doing that, we are creating a parallel or activating parallel systems. One, only the compression on the internal organ. I'm sure that Kumar understands the benefits of creating this movement in the internal organ compared to a stress that creates stagnant. At the same time, using this technique, we are also creating a pressure on the nerve system, and we are shooting some signal from bottom up, and we cleaning the nerve system. So again, our Wi-Fi signal is much more fast, and at the same time, we are actually activating the pineal gland, which is one of the reward mechanism, which also known to be the activation for the placebo effect. For those of us who don't know the placebo effect is actually we can recover ourselves just by believing that we will be recovered. And there is endless research about that. Some of the research see it as the bad part, the wrong thing, because of the placebo, the medicine is not good enough. But today we understand that it's actually the way we can heal ourselves naturally. And this is why this breathing technique is really interesting, because we are massaging and creating a bowel movement, we are cleaning the nerve system, and we are activating the placebo effect in the brain. So it's coming back in the feedback loop to create healing processes into a greater health. The last breathing exercise, which is really interesting because now science figured it out, but actually ancient knowledge use it as long as they since they discovered breath, and it's called resonance frequency breathing. This resonance frequency breathing, it's almost equal inhalation and exhalation, which will be inhale and exhale around 9 to 10 seconds, this whole one cycle. And actually, when we using the chanting, when we pray, the inhalation and exhalation, the way they pray, or the om or the chant is being designed, creating this resonance frequency rhythm. And this is why I'm saying it's between a meditative state of mind to a normal breathing exercise that actually creating a whole synchronicity in the internal systems between the heart, and it can realign the bowel reflex to create a better homeostasis. It's again putting us on the I would say a calm parasympathetic nerve system. Our gut can function way better, and it's a super simple breathing exercise.
Thanks, man. So, the for me, the interesting part of everything that you were saying is starting from the delta and the theta waves to ADHD to autism to the different breathing techniques. What I've read and I have understood is that all of these different signatures correlate with unique signatures or different patterns, unique patterns in the microbiome as well. And it's very interesting to note that the best way to kind of cure your body and the best way to get a good gut microbiome is probably do the right kind of breathing, and the other way around. The best way to actually sit in a place and do the right kind of breathing is probably have a good gut and a good microbiome. Uh,
One short
huh?
question is I would like to ask you how the gut microbiome actually uh, correlate and can change state of mind or a behavior.
I'll go back to the axis again, and the gut-brain axis is very, very strong. Let me take a very simple example that everybody will understand. You eat a lot of gluten-rich food continuously, a lot of pizzas, burgers, all of that, and one morning you wake up with with a heavy head, with what is now called as brain fog. You're not able to do anything mentally. You're not able to function. You just want to just sit and probably just watch TV and not doing anything at all. That mental state is actually contributed by the gut microbiome, by the kind of food that you've eaten, the kind of microorganisms that have grown in the gut because of that, and the kind of signals it's actually sending back to the brain. That's on one side. The other side, if you're sitting at home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you're craving for a bowl of ice cream, it's most likely that a bacteria in your gut actually signaling to your brain saying that feed me that that kind of food and that kind of ice cream. So it is both, mood is related to it, the brain function is related to it, and what we like and what we don't like is related to it. It's all nice to say, get up early in the morning, get some fresh air, and do some breathing and meditation. But you need to have proper meals the previous day to actually want to do all of this. And that's my very simple way of saying how the gut and the brain is connected.
And actually, I would say it's not something that you need to do for hours and hours during the
Mhm.
day. It's more like an habit. If you can take 5 minutes in different times of the day, and accumulate by the end of the day something like 20 to 30 minutes. A significant change in your health will come to you. Is it correct?
Yes, it will. It will. It's you're absolutely bang on. And uh, like you mentioned, it's not a one day change. It's a sustained activity, small portions every day, sustained activity, and you will see. I mean, you. We have tested individuals, and we've seen that there is significant change in the microbiome just by doing these simple activities. I mean, whether it's fasting, whether it's meditation, whether it's breathing, whether it's going out for a jog, any of this, changes the microbiome in a positive manner.
And in this note, I would like also to uh, mention that there are house or home devices that people can purchase for from very expensive gadgets and tools to very simple tools that can be still accurate to measure your quality of training. And from recognizing your sugar in your blood, and to know what is right and what is wrong for you, from your brain waves, and to know that you are doing a quality meditations or visualizations, to a biofeedback that can measure your heart rate and your heart rate variability, which you can purchase and know that you are practicing and creating quality training. So then this 5 minutes is something that you can count on.
Mon, since we have about 4 minutes left, it's been a very intriguing session. I'd like to end by asking you, you've done your gut microbiome test. Post the recommendations in whatever feedback that you've got from it. How has your life changed, if at
So
all?
as I mentioned, I was a perfect candidate to have gut microbiome problems, as I born under pressure, and I live all my life under stress and pressure, which we know this is one of the main issues that create gut issues. So my gut microbiome was not so great, and actually the ranges needed to be increased just to put my numbers. And uh, and the funny thing that many people feel symptoms, and for me, because it's from a childhood, it was the way I am. I just accepted this is how it is. And I can say that in less than a month's time, using a correct nutrition, thanks to a PhD that provides me a very accurate guidelines, and that collaborate with your reports, Kumar, and they could, give me not only food portions, but also supplements guidelines and times of the day. I can say that my cognition changed, my ability to function cognitively increased, my energy levels have increased, and my ability to maintain a good level of energies, um, it's like a magic for me. I can also say that more than ever, again, because of the accurate report and the accurate guidelines, I know exactly what I should eat in the lunchtime, which will give me enough nutrition, but will not create any crash in my energy, and what I can eat in the evening, that even if energy drop is there, the nutrition values are greater than that, and it's all been strategized with this objective, accurate measurement, and with well researched guidelines, to together with that, I'm using biofeedback devices between behavioral foresight. We are using to measure my quality of breathwork or my quality of my meditation, which I also changed. And actually, one of the reasons that I didn't feel heavy symptoms and I could maintain myself, it was thanks to breathing and meditation. But again, it was not a solution for the gut issues, and I needed to replace my diet. And now, together with different diet, different guided meditations, and breathing exercises, I could see also my ability to handle pressure and to handle multiple events, meetings, and scenarios around me have increased.
Thanks, Mon. And for all of y'all who want to understand more of what Mon does, please go to mybefore.live to get more information of all the techniques and all the work that he's been doing. Mon, it's been a pleasure to have you here today. I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as I did, and thank you for taking the time and coming and spending with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And if I would say one last question, what would we say about microbiome in the brain? What do we know?
Very, very controversial topic. I think the world is divided into half. Some people think that there is no microbiome in the brain, and the rest of them. But now there is increasing evidence that there is some kind of microbiome or microorganisms actually in the brain. But the jury's still out there. I think we need to do some more experiments to figure that out. Sampling is going to be tough, Mon. And I don't think either of us should be volunteers right now.
So we have a good work to do together. And again, thank you so much for inviting me. And I hope you all enjoy from this conversation.
It was a pleasure, Mon. And thank you all. Till the next episode, see you. Bye.